the timeline for Caitlin Clark's return. And I don't know how many people actually caught this. I did catch it, and I was like, I'm probably talking about that tomorrow. Quote, Indiana will play Washington on Friday at home, and Connecticut, who has the worst record in the league, on Sunday. Indiana's August 12th game against Dallas was broadcast on ESPN. At one point in the show, play-by-play man Ryan Ruocco shared an interesting message about number 22's return timeline.
Caitlin Clark hasn't played since July 17th, and fans were told again and again it was a game-time decision. But here's the thing, every update sounds different, and none of them make sense. Why can't the Fever just give a straight answer? Is this about protecting her health, or protecting ticket sales?
Look at some response from the Fever fandom, because the Stephanie White coaching situation is now splitting the fan base. All right, there's no way around it at all. You got fans mad that other fans are being critical of the coach. You cannot have a 19-0 run put on you in any quarter at home by any team in the league. I don't know how you watch this team and not be extremely critical of the coaching. You cannot lose that game last night at home. You cannot. You cannot have a...
Because the timeline doesn't add up, and every day she stays out, the team's playoff hopes slip away. If this feels suspicious, that's because it is. Let's break down what's really happening behind these mixed messages. Quick favor before we move on. If you appreciate this content, consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel. Believe it or not, more than 92% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. It's free and only takes a second, but it means the world to us. So did you subscribe already? Great, thank you so much for your support. Now back to the video.
Yeah, Vanessa, we know that Caitlin Clark has done some full court running over the last week or two, and the update as of Monday is that she was able to add more in that regard and doing that full court running as she works to build her endurance.
Check out the frustration from someone on the bench on that last play. On another look, you see Caitlin Clark pleading for a foul on the play, coming on the court after the buzzer to yell at an official. Clark clearly upset with the officiating.
After not doing anything for so long, but she has still not returned to practice. She has still not returned to any sort of team activities yet. And I think with her being out for so long at this point, you also have to expect that the ramp-up period for her to get back on the court is going to take longer as well.
The Fever keep listing Caitlin Clark as a game-time decision, but weeks have gone by and she hasn't even touched the court. That's the part that doesn't make sense. If a player is close to returning, you'd expect to see her in warm-ups, maybe going through light practice, at least some kind of hint that she's working her way back. Instead, reporters flat out say she's not practicing, which raises the question, how in the world is she supposed to be ready to play in a matter of hours if she isn't even doing drills the day before?
They are not putting a timetable out there in terms of when we could see her back on the floor.
Yeah, I know Fever fans want her back. The Fever, by the way, are getting pretty thin at guard with season-ending injuries to Arie McDonald, Sydney Colson, Shanae out.
And so for the Fever, there's been 11 games that Caitlin Clark has missed since that July 15th injury. They have 11 regular season games left before the playoffs, so some time, but not a ton of time to get her back incorporated, and they've stayed consistent.
Yeah, I think they're probably getting a little nervous right now, but the good news is that we're sort of seeing a little bit of like the tiredness. I was at the Sparks game recently, and all the players are like, it's been a long season. Again, a record number, 44 games that they're having to play.
The math doesn't add up, and fans are starting to feel like they're being strung along. Clark's absence started back on July 17th, when she went out with a groin injury. At first, the team told everyone she was week to week. That sounds like the kind of language teams use when they genuinely expect progress in the short term. But then, almost out of nowhere, the status switched to indefinite. That's a massive shift. Week to week means we're counting the days. Indefinite means there's no real timeline at all.
And we still don't know when she will be returning to the court, if she will be returning to the court this season. And most specifically, the reporting around Caitlin Clark's injury, because I feel like it is getting stranger by the day. It has been a month now that Caitlin has been out. And unfortunately, I'm starting to get this gut feeling that we might not even see Caitlin back on the court this season. And that might actually be the best thing for her. So let's, and Scott Agnes was replying to someone else's comment who said, just can't wait until Cece is back. She's the most dynamic, electric player in the WNBA.
Which one is it? And why did it take almost a month to go from one label to the other? If you step back and look at it, the contradictions become impossible to ignore. On one hand, the team's injury report leaves the door wide open, keeping the hope alive that she could dress any given night. But on the other hand, people watching the actual team practices are telling us she hasn't been anywhere near game shape. That's like dropping your car off at the shop because they say it just needs a quick test drive adjustment, and then 2 months later it still won't start. Anyone would be furious at that situation. And this is the same thing, except instead of a car, it's one of the most talked about athletes in the country. And right in the middle of these mixed signals, Scott Agnes goes on record saying fans will need patience for several more weeks. That line is important, because it gives a more realistic window compared to the day-to-day suspense from the official reports. So which source do you trust? The team, who has every reason to keep people on edge, or the independent reporters dropping hints that this thing is dragging out way longer than expected?
I actually went to his YouTube channel and just kind of skimmed through the comments to see if there was anything else. There was one other reply where he was replying to someone and basically said, like, you have to trust me or just trust me. And then Scott Agnes replied and he said, have patience, at least several more weeks. Now, Scott Agnes is a beat reporter for the Indiana Fever. He has been covering them relentlessly all season, and we have gotten a lot of great information from Scott. It's up to viewers' discretion. It's up to the fans if they want to believe what he's saying, but several more weeks pretty much puts Caitlin Clark to coming back at the very end of the regular season.
The gap between those two stories is exactly what has people questioning if this is about medical caution, or if something else is guiding the narrative. These shifting labels aren't harmless either. They generate headlines every single time. News outlets pump out fresh content. Will Clark return tonight? Clark still listed as day-to-day. Fans keep checking their social feeds before every tip-off because there's always the possibility she plays, even though the behind-the-scenes picture doesn't support it at all. It starts to feel less like simple injury updates and more like a plotline, where anticipation is the real product being sold. And when sports feel scripted, people naturally start looking for the motive behind the storyline. The timing makes this even more suspicious. The Fever don't have much runway left. There are barely a dozen games remaining in the regular season, less than a month on the calendar. A groin injury isn't something you just shake off instantly, and the chances of truly healing before playoff pressure hits are slim. So what benefit is there in dangling the hope of a comeback every night instead of being upfront? It looks less about protecting her body and more about keeping the buzz alive until the very end of the schedule. And here's the kicker: around the same stretch where these game time decision updates kept popping up, ticket sales for Fever home games jumped. That coincidence is hard to ignore. It's almost as if the possibility of Clark suiting up was being used as a marketing tool, because fans kept buying in, clinging to that chance that tonight might finally be the night. It's a clever business move, but when you're dealing with someone's career and health, the line between strategy and exploitation gets thin. So you have to ask yourself, if the storyline really is being dragged out for business reso,